So next we have cameras in Middle Earth.
It's the biggest low-budget film being made in the Wellington area.
In the Wellington area. It's the biggest low-budget film being made in the history of the planet.
Low budget, really? Was it low budget? Cameras in Middle Earth.
You know, even though we shot these 3 movies for 15 months,
to see that the first time.
If we just had one unit shooting everything that needed to be shot, we'd be probably going for 6 or 7 years.
We had many units shooting, often 5 units shooting, sometimes 7 units shooting. Almost always we shot with 2 cameras on each unit.
It was fairly high speed. I mean, Peter's one of those classic sort of people that his capacity to absorb a lot of information I find really amazing. So he's one of those sort of people that can work several shoots at once.
1A was the main unit and the other unit was called 1B. And then it became apparent that even those 2 units were not going to get through this amount of footage, so we created a second unit. And eventually, as we went along, we realised that the second unit were not going to get through everything that they needed to get through either, so we created a second unit, which was directed by Jeff Murphy.
Pete made it very clear that he couldn't be everywhere that he would like to be at every one time.
That's what I said at one point. I'm like,
in his place were ideal. They were the perfect people to be there.
Okay.
Pete trusted them intrinsically, so we did the same.
Yeah, sure did. Very well. Good job.
Our principal Hobbiton set was in
I love how he knows how to get
the town of
delegated
Matamata, and we shot a lot of the location footage there.
We'd seen beautiful sets before, but this was unbelievable.
Hobbiton was an exceptional location, except that it was extremely difficult to access. All the roads were really paths. It was a very fragile landscape, and yet we basically still had to come in with fairly sizable technology, but it just required more physical labour to actually work the location.
Today we're keeping chimneys up and running. There's 47 chimneys in the location, which all have particular secret little ingredient smoke pots in them to keep them up and running. So it looks like there's a little bit of activity happening in the buildings. So and mad to you too.
Philosophically, as far as what we wanted to do with Hobbiton, since it was the opening of the film, we basically wanted to start off with sort of a very idyllic place, which is very, expressive of a simple lifestyle, a rural lifestyle, where people are actually very much in touch with nature. And I just wanted to make everyone feel like that it was like a holiday destination. People would love to want to go there.
When you're walking throughout the Shire,
you did a great job capturing that.
You could see what an enviable existence it was for the hobbits.
It's excellent. Everything is absolutely a joy to be here.
It's fun. It's something totally different. I think I would have paid money to be a hobbit. But no, it's been great.
Me too.
Well, it's the 17th of January 2000. It's our first day back on the shoot since Christmas in the new century, and it was also Ian McKellen's first day today.
You're late.
A wizard is never late. So go Baggins. Nor is he early.
Why does that
he arrives precisely when he means to.
And it felt like coming home, and that was a good feeling for me, because Gandalf was returning back to an area of Middle-earth that he loved and respected.
I love this so much.
No, thank you. We don't want any visitors, well-wishers, or distant relations.
Yes, and what about very old friends?
Of course, once Gandalf walks inside Bag End, then you're into a studio. You're no longer at Matamata. You're, several hundred miles away, and you're in a small, confined studio.
Often we filmed in 2 different scale sets. So Bag End was built, for example, in a large size scale for Ian Holm to appear in, and a small scale, a Hobbit size scale, for Ian McKellen to walk through.
And in the smaller one, I, as a normal sized person, could look enormous, because everything in Bag End was small.
Yeah. Right. Oh, that's so good.
The Bilbo's party, which takes place on the party field, we see the party field at Matamata in the daytime being prepared, but when you actually go to the party at night, you're now inside a studio. You're not in Matamata at all. You're in the middle of the day. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and you've got the studio pretending to be a Hobbit party at night.
Oh,
It would be great to get, with the fireworks, it'd be great to get more applause, you know? We're getting sort of, that, which is nice, it's certainly better. But if we got a bit of, you know, if we've got a bit of jumping and actually cheering, more cheering and clapping at each firework burst, it'll be good.
He said cheer at each firework. He is really directing, huh?
It was great
Everything.
because they had all these
I need you guys to actually applaud.
extras as hobbits.
The cheers are good, but
you know,
this
and this
applause.
party scene was when they did that the dance, and something that
It's
a lot of
wonderful to
people
see
might
him in
not
action
have
like
noticed
this.
is I
He
play
knows
in
exactly
the
what he
band,
wants to see.
the Hobbit band. I'm up there with my Hobbit ukulele, whatever that may be.
Bilbo's going to tell a story, just like at story time. So we need you guys to be sitting on the mat, just like you do at story time.
And I remember the day where the firework blows up in our face.
As soon as it goes bang, you
Oh
just
yeah,
gotta
that
let
was
it let
fun.
it go.
Such was but Billy, being this kind of slightly feminine character that he is, was really quite scared by it and made this girly kind of shriek, which I barely got through the take on.
Supposed to stick it in the ground. Where's in the ground? Outside. That's a good idea.
I would laugh too.
I just like get such a fright.
Yeah,
and
such a
Dom
fright.
just gave me abuse for it all day.
Yeah,
It is in the ground.
they did so well, setting up their characters in that little moment, you know. I was a little leery about bringing them along on the trip when I was watching it, but they turned out to really
You know, we've
be
been shooting for
beneficial
about 4
to
months
our
now, and we
crew,
finally get to start to do things with the
which
villains.
I was not expecting.
Like, we've done a lot of shooting with the Hobbits and Aragorn and our heroes, and it's great to finally get the dark part of the story on film to start to set up the sort of the opposition, as it were. But it's obviously a big thrill to work with someone like Christopher Lee, who's a bit of a icon, and I mean, I haven't mentioned it to him at this stage, but I've been a big fan of his, obviously, most of my life, and watching Hammer horror double features when I was a kid, and you know, it's just sort of fun and a little bit unbelievable to finally be working with someone like that and having them on the set and directing them, and you know, it's a big thrill.
No, my first day in the garden, remember we got to take 10, which is very unusual with me. I don't say that in an immodest way. I mean, there just isn't time in most films. Wait a minute, 10, 11, 12. Surely we got that right.
Right, okay.
But it was Peter who wanted that line up, that line down, that word,
right,
that way.
He is directing
and
his
those words,
ass off.
that way, or whatever. He waited until he got it.
It has
And
to
it took a lot
be
of takes
exactly what he wants. Wow.
Well, we got used to it and realized that was the way he worked.
For him to visualize it like that.
I remember
I
saying
need it
to him,
sound like
I
this,
think a bit worried about
rhythm.
this, you know, because I think I got to take 11 or 12 or something. I think I got it right. Oh, he said, you don't have to worry about that. I had 24 takes the other day, and it was only a couple of lines.
Why don't I say, just to complicate it, say your line again.
The 9 have left between
The
us
way he was
both
directing the applause,
The 9.
you know, let me know that he is serious.
The interior of Orthanc was, as far as I was concerned, papers, dust, and the sunlight coming through stained glass, a mess. And then leading out from that, the more imposing, dark inner sanctum with Saruman's large chair, like a throne. It was a place like no other. I'd never been in a room like that. It didn't remind me of anything. And I just thought, oh, I see, this is where Saruman thrives and plots. And so that was a very evocative and helpful set.
The costume was extremely long, and I had considerable difficulty in walking up the steps to my throne. And one day I was driven to distraction when I kept on tripping. And I said, I'm sorry, I cannot get up these goddamn steps smoothly.
Right.
I can't do it, Peter. I'm sorry, because every time I try, I step on the thing. And a voice came from near the camera saying, well, you did it this morning.
Oh.
It's put me in my place.
Oh.
Saruman the Wise
You did it this morning.
Reason for madness.
It was. I like seeing him step out of character right there. I can't
when
do
I was
it.
dealing with 1B, I was having to do the wizard fight. It was one of those deals where, I was doing the stunt shots between Gandalf and Saruman. So you're gonna hit the ground and you hit the ground and it's like,
Is it normal for directors to be hands-on like this? It's very interesting.
Stunts were superbly well done. I had no idea what it was going to look like. I had no idea until I saw the film.
Yeah.
Works very well.
Oh, very well. I was like, what is happening to Gandalf?
Second unit's first day was actually at night.
That looked so good, didn't it?
It was the moment with the trees being ripped out at Isengard. That was the first thing they shot. And we were kind of in and out of rain that whole weekend. And that kind of became the mantra for second unit.
It rained for about 2 weeks, and so this whole scene was shot in pouring rain in the middle of the night on beautiful green grass, which turned into about 8 inches of slime mud within an hour of starting. And it just added another dimension to the whole the look of it. It just added a huge, wonderful shininess, muddiness, grungy.
That was actually really fortunate
element that no one could have imagined.
Yeah. So good.
The very first day of photography, in actual fact, was a scene on the wooded road where the hobbits have to hide from the ring wraith.
I thought you could turn around and say, quick. Quick.
We're going into standby mode then, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. So one more time, all mobile phones had better be off or they'll end up in the ocean. And your radios off if they're open, please. No excuses.
Kara Cunningham, for me, our first assistant director, she's one of those people that you can't imagine getting through the movies without.
She has a great aesthetic understanding of what you're trying to achieve.
I don't know why that made me I don't know her.
If it's sort of crunch time and she has a problem,
I agree.
You do everything in your power to help her out, because all the rest of the time she's doing absolutely everything in her power to allow Peter and myself to perform our jobs to the maximum possibility.
Why is this so interesting to me? I mean, we're just learning about the directing, like how they did put it all together, but it's just so
what I was in for that day
fascinating.
when Peter, would bring the second or the third camera in and put it in close on us and say, okay, now it's the most terrifying thing you've ever experienced.
And the way they put it
It's just this
together.
primal fear, and
Right?
and I want you to
It's
feel
so
the fear. And he's
cohesive.
talking us through this kind
And
of
entertaining.
idea of having our kind of spirit and souls and our whole essence.
I think we shot all of Bree, for the most part, the actual city street of Bree in one night. And we had the rain towers, and it was mad and crazy.
Oh.
It blew me away that they could take a very small piece of set and sort of build it into the earth and then film it and pan off of it and just trust that digitally the rest of the world would be created beyond that.
The Prancing Pony was, like most of the sets, very authentic, really well crafted. It was a place where you step on the soundstage, you walk in that door to the Prancing Pony, and you're there. I mean, it was so well constructed.
And then we had these massive tables that we sat at. So it made us look small, big plates. It made us feel smaller, and it kind of made that world more realistic for us.
What's that? This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints.
Oh, I'm getting one. The Midgewaters were basically us along this journey with Strider, trudging through these kind of marshy, nasty wetlands.
It was freezing cold, and our feet were so cold. We just couldn't feel anything. Meanwhile, you've got Pete Jackson hiding underneath the little trailer, giggling, because he's got his four hobbits and Aragorn, going through this water that stinks, and we're falling over, and Billy fell flat on his back, and it was a rough day. And I remember we all went to the pub that night and were drinking lots of kind of hearty drinks like whiskey and mulled wine and all that kind of stuff, because it just chilled you to your bones.
I wonder how many scenes, how many takes that
The
took?
sword work on the movie was obviously incredibly important. The Weathertop fight was one of the early fights in the film.
Weathertop was the main thing that we rehearsed before we started filming.
Okay.
You know, the actors arrived about 6 or 8 weeks before the shoot. Having sword lessons with Bob Anderson was always part of their regime.
We had so much fun learning how to do the sword fighting, and we actually choreographed a number of very involved sequences. And I remember when we were filming on Weathertop, I was bringing the full
Totally forget
weight
that
of
it's
my
choreographed,
kind
of course.
anger and ferocity
They
to
were
it.
really
And I
fighting
remember
to me.
Peter saying, well, listen, you know, you're a hobbit, and you couldn't actually generate that much force to have your sword move the sword of the Ringwraith if you were to strike it. So you got to kind of pull it back. And I remember feeling like, man, no one's going to see that I'm really good at this sword stuff. I'm going to have to and just be like a little hobbit doing it.
It's like,
The irony is that the person that had to be the most accomplished swordsman in the film, which was Viggo Mortensen playing Aragorn, Viggo didn't get cast in the movie until we were a few days into shooting the film. So he didn't have any of the advantage of this training with Bob, and he'd never used a sword before. So Viggo arrives in New Zealand, he gets off the plane, and the Weathertop fight scene is like the first thing he's going to shoot.
So Bob Anderson was my first guide, basically. And
He didn't have any training at all.
pretty strict,
Wow.
but really encouraging.
I think he gave Viggo the most
time did he get?
crash course in sword fighting that anyone's ever had, because Viggo had to be there fighting these ringwraiths,
wouldn't
fighting
know it.
5 ringwraiths at the same time, looking like an expert swordsman. And I'll tell you what, you know,
I
Viggo
remember
just
that. I
became,
remember
I think,
like, who
you know,
is he?
the greatest swordsman that Bob has ever
Viggo?
worked with in
Not
his
Viggo.
entire career.
Who was Strider? I'm like, how is he able to do all of this single-handedly? Yeah, that was so good, right? Considering that he didn't even get any training. What? Very interesting. I don't know why I needed to know that, but I'm thankful.
We actually realized
Hi, Arwen.
that bringing Arwen's voice down to a really low register, how that suddenly just made everything work. Lothlórien. It sounded really weird at times when I was doing it. I thought, oh my God, this is too deep, but it worked. And it was funny when my dad saw the movie for the first time. He's like, whose voice was that? I was like, Dad, you jerk. It's mine. I'm an actress.
Fight hard. Don't look back.
I forgot how high her voice is in comparison to Arwen's voice. Interesting. I'm glad they made that choice to lower the register of her voice. It's like they know what they're doing.
Cutting! Cut!
They must have hundreds of hours of footage of Jane riding, and she was incredible.
As the truck gets a length ahead, so he's actually just got momentum on, then you could actually set yourself in.
The action that we're doing is like, like yesterday we were jumping over a log and then galloping down a steep hill.
I don't think it was ever a question. I was never going to be allowed on the stallion going at that speed. That was just never an option.
Okay.
I was on the back of a truck on a barrel with, this kind of a horse skin wrapped around it, and I had to do this for 5 days and look scared. And, that was rough.
Very interesting. 5 days and look scared.
The Rivendell location was primarily built at a park called Kaitoki.
So, the elves, that whole concept of being one with the nature was pretty important. And as a result, Peter had the design team, have this kind of indoor-outdoor feel throughout. So we would have outdoor sets, for exterior shooting, as well as sets outdoors for interior shooting. And we mimic that on the stage as well, where we would have, interior sets of Rivendell that still have that outdoor feel. So we'd have trees on the stage,
The reason we built Elrond's council chamber inside was we had to be able to control the environment completely, so it wasn't something we could really shoot out of Kaitoki.
You know, we were literally sitting in a circle of actors like Ian McKellen, Hugo Weaving, Viggo Mortensen, Sean Bean, John Rhys Davies, you know, Elijah was there, and, you know, it was just like I was looking around, I was sitting there thinking, whoa, this is a real lineup of some greats.
Sauron himself forged the one.
It dominates most of my memory because the council scene took about, my God, I think it took the better half of like 5 days.
We spent a lot of time there because we had to sort of cover it from more or less every angle. You see all the characters all in a circle.
5 days.
So we had to shoot it from everybody's point of view. And so by the end, I mean, I think we all knew each other's lines because we'd heard them that many times.
It was probably the longest sequence in the movie.
Very interesting.
Which is kind of shocking because I think that there are scenes that seem
they had to do it from everyone's point of view.
But just pure scenes. That was one of the longest.
You shall be the Fellowship of the Ring.
Right. Our Fellowship of the Ring.
Where are we going?
Mordor. I love that. I love that he asked that question.
Some of the locations were incredibly remote. We occasionally just flew people in choppers, which was a fairly major operation. We usually had to have 4 or 5 helicopters making several trips to the location to get everybody up there. And there was always, serious safety considerations because if you're stuck on these mountains and suddenly, a storm sweeps in or clouds sweep in, the helicopters kind of can't land or fly. And there's a very big danger that everyone's going to get stranded and have to spend the night on this mountaintop or wherever you are. And so we always, used to take survival kits up there. We used to take tents and rations and stuff up there in case the situation arose that we would get stuck on a mountain for a day or two without being able to be rescued. It was always a little bit tense. And one of the most spectacular mountains was a place near Mount Aspiring where we did the scene in the snow where Boromir picks up the ring.
And all the other guys were great. They were filming it, and Dominic and Billy and Orlando saying, "Oh man, this is amazing!" And I was sort of gripping the seat, just thinking, "When are we going to get there?"
Yeah, it's dark.
I was worried when we got there. All Sean would be able to think about, or would be thinking about, for the rest of the day was, I have to write back. And I thought, man, it's a crucial scene, and he has a moment with the ring. It's a very important moment for the Fellowship.
He did very well.
And he really did well. I thought that was one of his outstanding moments in the movie.
It is a strange thing that we should suffer so much fear and doubt for so small a thing.
Mm-hmm. Afterwards, I said, when we were getting ready to go, and I said, were you thinking about the fact that we would have to ride back again in the helicopter? Were you thinking about it? He says, all the time.
Wow.
I said, man, I don't know how you did it, but you really nailed it. Yeah. After this particular journey, he didn't take any more helicopter rides. He just said, that's it. I'll walk, I'll swim, I'll crawl, I'll do whatever it takes. I'll walk all night to get there by morning, but I'm not taking any more helicopter rides.
Shortly afterwards, we had to go to another location, which was in the Remarkables in Queenstown by a lake to shoot a scene. They would begin with everybody flying in the helicopters, and as we flew over at 7:30 in the morning, we'd look down and there'd be this tiny black speck climbing the cliff. It was almost like a cliff face. It was Sean Bean dressed up as Boromir.
That is
like a human
hilarious.
fly on the wall, clambering up this mountainside.
You are kidding
all by
me.
himself to sort of get
to
that
is so good to know.
To get to the location because he didn't want to go there and shop. He had like 2 hours of climbing to do.
And they used to see me from the helicopter.
He was serious, right?
And I was sweating at the end. It was like a real adventure
he was not getting on that helicopter.
Sort of mountain to get to the set. But
I love that.
I preferred doing it that way.
Yeah. I've got a few anxieties
too.
I understand.
The Fellowship and the Avalanche was very difficult to shoot. I actually didn't shoot much of that. That was directed by John Mahaffey. It was shot in a stage with this fake snow.
Yeah, simulated snow is a rice-based product.
Okay.
to taste, it was kind of salty or something. It's like it was kind of like
you tasted it?
almost like sawdust, salty
We
sort of
don't need to
sawdust or
taste
something.
it.
It was horrible.
It gets into your eyes. It affects your eyes more than anything else.
Why would you taste it? I don't understand.
Even after one day of it, it left
guess
your
it just
face really
accidentally
red
gets
and
into
raw.
your
You know, I mean, it just really got in your eyes and your ears,
That's
your
too
whole
much.
body. It was a high salt content in it, whatever it was.
You know,
like
filmmaking is
whatever
very
it was.
counterintuitive. When it's supposed to be freezing cold and snowing, you're invariably on a set where the Klieg lights are on and you're so hot that your sweat is pouring down your face.
You had to keep saying to yourself, no, I'm feeling very cold. I'm in the snow. Despite the warmth
Look
of the
at
bright
that.
lights.
Right.
However,
I didn't even think about that.
uncomfortable
I
is
thought
what
they
it
were
must
really
be
cold.
to be in an avalanche. And so
They
in the
hot
end, it was
and they
probably
got
an
fake
aid to
snow
believability.
flying on it. They're into their mouths and eyes. Wow. I'm done.
The exterior for Moria was shot.
They
on a
made
wet
it so
set.
believable.
It was shot in a
There's
car
no way in the
park
world.
right by a railway
I
station,
was cold
which is
watching
really
it.
funny when you think about it, because you know it looks so convincing as the outside of a lake.
But that was good. We'll do one more.
We'll do one more. That was very.
It was freezing. The nights that we had to do the exterior stuff there, it was some of the coldest nights
Oh.
I can remember. I remember actually Billy Boyd, I think, was probably the coldest of us all.
That evening is the coldest my feet have ever been, to the point that I was almost going to have to say it. Like, I can't actually go on.
Yeah.
It was like 4 or 5 in the morning, and we'd done this shot quite a few times, and I was becoming really, really uncomfortable. So that's my abiding memory of outside the gates of Moria.
We must face the long dark of Moria.
He pushed through.
When I was walking with the staff in the mines of Moria, which had to have an illuminated bulb on top, that had to be provided with an electricity, and it travelled along the wire through a hollow staff out through the bottom, and the wire was hidden under the robes into a battery pack attached to my back.
I don't think you were sort of holding it in any particularly. Well, I think you were just using it, you know, just as a torch, basically. Yeah.
Brian Bansgrove was our chief lighting technician or gaffer.
DPs like to have a great relationship with their chief lighting technicians or gaffers, and because sometimes, you know, it can get a bit lonely out there. There's not a lot of people that really sort of understand the finer intricacies of light.
Right.
I basically really appreciated Brian for his eye. It's great when you've got a gaffer on set who actually understands the emotion of what you're trying to do with the light that you've got.
And when you do a film that's visually
That was
effects
so
laden
sweet.
and you're dealing with CG characters, you often have to act to someone that might not even be there. If you're acting with a cave troll, for example, well, there is no cave troll.
As an actor, you just had to believe that they were going to create something spectacular that you were fighting.
Peter showed us
that
things,
scene was so good, right?
CGI stuff, you know, which gives an idea of what we were fighting, even though it was thin air. We
so
knew what it would probably look
like,
like in the
what
end.
is happening?
And once you get into the rhythm of that, that's fine. You know, you can sort of deal with it, and it's just it becomes very natural. And then when you see it all put together, it's fantastic because it all makes sense. You know, sometimes somebody's telling you to do something, it seems really weird, and it seems wrong, and it seems, but this is crazy. But you said trust, you know, trust it. It's going to look good, and it did.
Yeah,
you know.
it did. It looks so good.
Incredibly hot and humid, and there's no air conditioning in the building, and we've got huge amounts of light, and it's really giving this place a very subtropical jungle sort of feel.
Yeah.
Which basically described her as saying, no sign of age was upon her, except in the depths of her eyes, keen lances in the starlight, wells of deep memory. I wanted to find a visual interpretation for that somehow. So what we did, Brian and I did a few little experiments, and we eventually came up with what we called the Galadriel light. We went out and bought many Christmas lights, and we festooned them all over this rig. And what it did is it actually reflects like Starfield in her eyes. Because, you know, to me, it's like a lot of performances in the eyes, and I wanted her highlights to be different to everybody else's in the film.
The scene where the Fellowship depart Lórien and receive their gifts had to be shot on the sort of edge of a pretty riverbank, and instead of finding a river, we actually found basically a lake, a small lake, in a country estate called Fernside.
We're just basically pumping a lot of smoke and using the sun and trying to get, God rays and things to make it feel a little bit ethereal, elven, dreamlike, Lothlórien.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun there in that location. They had this huge trunk with huge roots going off into the water, as if they were almost like little docking areas. These huge roots going into the water. So yeah, that was a beautiful location actually.
There was a dreamlike quality to that whole place.
Elven room. Thank you, my lady. Look, have you run out of those nice shiny daggers?
We shot that scene over several days, which I'm really glad has gone back into the extended cut now, because it's quite a nice scene. It's sort of essential to the story because the Fellowship are given these gifts which they use in subsequent movies. So I'm glad that we're actually able to let people see that scene now, because it sort of sets things up for the next two films.
Technically, the scene was difficult because when you read about it in the book, it's quite enchanting. Gimli says, yes, there is one thing I would have. I would have one hair from your head.
Yeah.
And she gives him 3. Now, on the page, that works. But think about it in terms of film. There's the dwarf with his great big gloves on. And there's this elegant, wonderful woman. And what's she going to be doing? She's going to be doing, all right, then you're hair. So
right. Right.
Well, there it is. Can you see the hair? There is actually a hair in my hand. All right? No, she's got to fish out 3 anyway. All right, so now, what does she do? She gives this hair to me. What do I do with it? I mean, how do I take it? I mean, do I put it in the glove like that and say, oh, yeah? I mean, it is just too cumbersome to film.
What was it?
I asked her for one hair from her golden head. She gave me 3.
Well done.
Some of the rivers that we were shooting on in the South Island, they were picked for their beauty, but they were fast flowing and they were very deep. There were currents, and so one of the training regimes that we set up for our actors when they first arrived in New Zealand was boat handling skills, basic canoe type skills. But it did ultimately come in very handy, because usually it wasn't doubles in these boats, it was usually the actors themselves. We only had one mishap that I was aware of, which was shooting the scene where the actors are looking up at the Argonath.
Myself and Brett were in this boat, and one of the guys filming grabbed the front of our boat and stopped us because we were going on downstream, and he just stopped us to catch us. But the water was running so fast that when he held onto the boat, it just started to come over the top of the boat and into the boat. And so we just started going down. And I was going, let go of the boat, let go, man, because he was holding onto it, trying to help us.
And these guys went under the water. The boat sunk, and all the we had lots of safety boats. They rushed in.
And Brett Beatty was in. I mean, it's kind of funny, except that Brett was in this armor. He's in heavy armor, man. That's chainmail that he was wearing, and he's got this wetsuit on. And he had like a blow up thing underneath him, a blow up life jacket in case. Okay. And he pulled that, and it didn't really inflate. I could see him going down, so I just went I was holding on to this guy, and I just yanked him up out of the water, and he was like this, and I was holding him up like this, and he was like going, he was freaked out, man. And we chucked him up, and he was okay, but it was like, for a minute there, man. I mean, that could have been bad.
I think Orlando was more embarrassed than anything to be the one member of the Fellowship who kind of sunk his boat whilst on active duty.
And those boats, as beautiful as they are, were pretty, pretty tippy. They were kind of flimsy in a way. And because of the scale issue, it was Kieran Shaw, was Frodo. And I remember that when we did the wide shot, we were really moving down that river. And Kieran, we were doing the first take, and Kieran's going, don't worry about me. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm trying to talk without moving my lips, because and he goes, well, if we flip over, I said, we're not going to flip over. And he goes, if we flip over, just save yourself. I can't swim. I said,
"Oh my God!"
You know, I couldn't believe it.
Oh my
Then
God.
I got really nervous. You know, like if someone's watching you driving, you start overcoming. And I was like,
yes.
Every Eddie now became
there was no way
possibility. And
I
after
can't
that take,
swim.
I said, "You're kidding,
Lord
right?"
have mercy.
No. I'm even afraid to take a bath. Jesus.
Oh my goodness. That was so brave of him to be able to just do that, get in that canoe, knowing he can't swim.
ended up filming our first really big battle scenes, I guess, of the trilogy, and they were the Amon Hen fights at the climax of the Fellowship.
This is a fight routine that happens on top of this hill, and you guys are charged up the brow of the hill, and you're flooding over here, and Aragorn here, Vigo, gets to fight you single-handedly.
Single-handedly,
one versus
yeah.
100.
Okay.
Killing machines move forward with the intention
Oh my,
that
who
you're going
is
to kill. So keep it
Strider?
fluid, not stilted. Give it the best you can. Thank you.
Richard made this
They're giving us so
impassioned
much in this
speech.
behind the scenes, though, right? It's very generous.
You know,
Like, they didn't
for
have
the
to
sake
do
of
this.
authenticity, this and that. But it was about bloodlust, about don't be afraid to maim, and just, I mean, you know, he was trying to do justice to Tolkien's vision, you know, and so he was just, there is no mercy, there is no, and these guys, you could see them shaking with anticipation, and I looked over at Pete, and then I looked over at the stunt coordinator, who was just going like that, who was feeling the same as I, which was, these guys didn't need any more
right.
encouragement to, like, you know, beat the snot out of me. I was like, I'm not going to be ashamed if I have to just turn around and run my ass off down the hill. No problem. You know, I got a long shoot ahead of me.
It was blazingly hot. It was like, you know, over 100 degrees.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
These poor guys were wearing this, you know, all this leather and fiberglass costumes
my
and rubber
goodness.
masks.
There's no way in the world.
It's very warm in there. Cheers, guys.
Oh my God.
Turn around.
In your stomach. Stomach? Gotcha. The great rules of karate are, if you cannot stand, you cannot fight. If you cannot see, you cannot fight. If you cannot breathe, you cannot fight.
Right.
Sure enough, there I am, my helmet over my eyes like that. And in truth, very, very hard to fight.
I think I have to say that Lurtz, who is a general of the Urukai army, is potentially my favourite character. He's played by an actor called Lawrence Mohure, an imposing gentleman even when he's not in his prosthetics.
Strike a pose and let's get with it.
And stay on it.
Oh. Yeah, I didn't see that was...
Barry Osborne directed most of the fight between Aragorn and Lurtz.
When you're running into that next shot, you really take off. And action, Vigo.
That's the clip they showed us.
On this movie, I have so much to do that it takes
so
actually
much
quite a lot of effort to be able to do this.
And very long fight
I find
scenes,
myself conflicted, but right now, finishing the movie seems to me to be the most important thing, and helping Peter out.
We have to keep him feeling happy and good. So we just give him a camera and a crew, and he's as happy as Larry, stays off our backs. It's a brilliant scheme.
Right there.
Anytime you make a movie with the sort of physical action, you know, that we have, there's always a danger of people getting hurt. I mean, you obviously take every possible precaution that you can, but you know, with that, people do get hurt. Fortunately, on the film, we never had any particularly serious injuries. Not really serious, although one of the worst ones actually happened to Sean Astin. And it was a relatively simple shot where Sean had to be on the shore of the lake, and he had to run out to the boat.
I'm running at a dead sprint, and I get in, and my left foot and as my right foot lands about 2 feet in the water, just this huge sharp pain, and I grabbed onto the side of the boat, and I just looked down, and it hurt so bad.
Let's sit him down and have a look at his foot. Mikey, where are you?
What happened?
Let's sit him
What was
down
it? He hit a
and
rock
have a
or
look at his
something?
foot. You want to sit on the bench or you want to sit on the chair?
His foot had virtually been completely impaled on this shard of glass.
Oh.
When they took the prosthetic off, it was a big, old, deep gash in the foot. I mean, it was a substantial cut.
Yeah.
Doing the same action again. Oh my God!
Still idiot that run over the top.
It's a lot of blood,
So
man.
Mike will get a
It's a lot of blood.
Look at him standing there cheesing.
There,
Dang.
that I was fascinated
that.
with. Master Frodo can play with my clots anytime he wants to. I'm fascinated.
We sit here watching Sam with blood dripping out of his foot. I mean,
good hour. It's an hour and a half's drive out of town. It was a long way. It was quite remote. We called for a
They're giving
chopper
us
to
so
come
much
in
good
because we
stuff.
knew we needed to get him to a hospital very, very
You
quickly
know?
because there was a lot of bleeding.
So the helicopter guy came out, and we jumped in, and it was Jacques Cousteau's
My
pilot.
goodness.
The guy who had flown Jacques Cousteau around on some of his expeditions, which I thought was really cool.
You know, it's a magic project because it made everyone so passionate.
It is a
But-
magic project.
Like when I walk away from it, it's not only the creation of the film, it's the people who created it is what is the experience that I love.
There was an awful lot of love involved in making this film, and it spread out from Peter Jackson, who was typical of his other Kiwis. Dedication and love are all mixed together.
It was made with love. It was made with great care and commitment. And I do genuinely think that spirit has made its way onto the screen. And that in a way, to me, is what the real heart of the Fellowship of the Ring is. It goes beyond the heart of Tolkien's book and something of this incredible spirit that was used making it has made its way onto the finished film.
Yes, indeed. I love that. Okay, so next time we're going to go on to
Our movie
video
has to deal
5,
with different scales.
which is scale. Ooh, that's going to be good too. Oh, this is so wonderful, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging in there with me. I know this is very long, just like all of the movies that I was watching, because I was watching the extended versions of all of the Lord of the Rings, and then I watched the extended version of the last Hobbit movie. So you guys have been hanging out with me for a very long time, and I really do appreciate it. I wasn't expecting so many of you guys to want to watch me react to the behind the scenes, just because I just feel like I'm just absorbing so much exposition and just like, you know, fangirling every other scene or every scene rather, because it's so good to me. It's just, you know, I mean, the way that they put it together, it's so cohesive and it's so informative, like things that we just would not know. And I feel like they've been very generous with us. I mean, they're giving us so much, and there's so many more videos left. And, you know, I've discovered so much already. So they really had like you know, they were intent on making this like a documentary. They wanted to document everything along the way, and I love that they did that. I feel so privileged to be watching this, you know, just to see more about what happened to our characters, right? How this whole world was built, this magic project, and it was definitely put together with love. Let me tell you something. The amount of passion that each person that is involved in this project had in order to bring this to the screen for us, you can feel it. You can feel it. That's why this movie is so beloved by everybody, because of what it took to put it out there. Oh, it's so wonderful. So, yeah, I'm going to stop it here. And as soon as I can, I'm going to get back to it. And we're just going to, I'm going to watch a few more of the videos and just keep it going, okay? All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining me. And until next time, let's flow.